Expedition 33 is the best piece of narrative media that has been released in the last decade. I genuinely mean that. Through its story, this game explores an extremely complex commentary on art, love, relationships, and escapism, and it is conveyed to the player through beautiful and extremely unique environments, a breathtaking one-of-a-kind soundtrack, and a clear and abundant level of passion. Yet, funnily enough, I originally had no intention of playing it. I had first learned of the game while watching the January 2025 Xbox Developer Direct, and I had just as quickly forgotten about it. A turn-based JRPG-style linear story game set in an apocalyptic retelling of Belle Epoque France. It was never the type of thing that would have caught my eye in the past, and so I blindly assumed it wouldn't be the kind of thing that would suck me in this time. Now that I'm reading that back, I don't really know why it didn't pique my interest. Then again, that January was a very transitional time for me. I had just graduated college and was doing manual labor jobs out of town while waiting for my 9-to-5 to start, and I had also committed myself to starting and finishing my first ever video essay by the end of the month. Clair Obscur then released that following April, and at this point I was ensnared tightly enough by the 40-hour workweek that I had just not been thinking about game releases at all. On top of that, I had spent the previous 3 months intermittently working on a video for Ghost of Tsushima, but honestly the energy-leeching nature of my full-time employment left me with little motivation. Perhaps at some point that project will see the light of day, though given that I have moved all of those files onto a 10-year-old hard drive that's made its way to God knows where, well, I suppose we will see. It actually wasn't until sometime that following May that Expedition 33 even made its way back onto my radar. I had managed to somehow glide over the release hype and initial critical reception until a few of the people in my very loosely related Twitter circle started talking about it. My attention had been regained, and before I knew it, I had been sucked in further than I could have imagined. When looking at a game, especially games that have a clear intention of presenting themselves as some type of art, I think it's important to try and figure out what exactly that game is trying to be about. Gaming is an experiential medium, so the best games will be able to identify what type of experience they are trying to provide, and they will cater their systems, mechanics, writing, and whatever else around that experience. Dark Souls is a game that is about perseverance, and this theme is repeated not just in the combat, but in the world design, the character arcs, and even the music. This philosophy can be seen throughout all of the great games of the last few decades. Skyrim is exploration, Baldur's Gate is choice. I spend a lot of time thinking about this topic as I believe it's what makes gaming such a transcendent and unique hobby, the ability to combine and synergize so many different forms of art, ranging from visual to spatial to everything in between, all to cater to one specific intended adventure. Now, I need to be clear that the idea of summarizing a game with just one word is a flawed one. Even the simplest of them have levels of complexity far beyond that. Still, I think it can help to develop an idea of the general theme a game wants to convey. In the case of Clair Obscur, the word that kept bouncing back into my head was relationships, but it didn't really feel quite right. Other words rolled around inside my head as well: humanity, loss, even religion. While none of these felt that they really fit the bill, I did find a word that felt not only right, but also unifying between these other concepts. There will be spoilers going forward. The title of the game is Clair Obscur, a translation of the word chiaroscuro, which means the treatment of light and dark, the contrast between these two concepts. A logical step forward from black and white would be the discussion of color, which is a theme that Expedition 33 uses graciously. Magic and other forms of power in this universe exist on the basis of something called chroma, which is a word used to describe the intensity of a color. As you can tell, Expedition 33 is full of references to art. The game starts on the day of the Gamage, or the Erasure, the day that the somber figure in the distance, dubbed the Paintress, rises from her sleep and paints a new number upon her stone monolith. Once that number is painted, everyone of that age withers and is blown away with the wind. Among those who are preparing to say goodbye is Sophie, the past but not forgotten partner of Gustave, the game's first playable character. It is immediately clear what their relationship meant to both of them, something that should have worked but couldn't. The background of their romance reminds me of the film Manchester by the Sea, which tells a story of two long-past lovers who desperately want to be together, but who know they can't. There is a clear display of grief from both Gustave and Sophie, a longing for a life together that would have been possible if it weren't for the reality that they were forced to reckon with. The Gamage. The Erasure. another reference to art, and one which will reveal itself as extremely fitting in the context of the greater story. The Gamage is clearly not only a day of great sadness, but to the people of Lumiere, the city that our cast inhabits, it is more than just a funeral. It is a deadline, and it is an annual reminder of the impending doom that they face. Despite this, most people seem okay, some even jovial. This part of their life is normal to them, it is expected, and maybe even worse, this death is such a natural part of their existence that they have become almost numb to it. Almost. As is tradition in Lumiere, those who are in their last year of life and are willing join the expedition, an excursion to the mainland and an effort to reach the Paintress and put an end to the chronal prison that is human life in this universe. It is the ultimate goal of the people of Lumiere to complete these expeditions. When viewed from the only lens that is available to them, the Paintress presents as the cause of their suffering, and the completion of an expedition could mean removing her stranglehold on their world. To Lumiere, the Paintress is a godlike figure, someone who has the ability to choose not just who lives and who dies, but when. In reality, we will learn that she is closer to a guardian angel, and we will become aware of how she too is struggling. Struggle. And sacrifice. This is the theme of the expeditions. In the words of Gustave, they serve to lay the path for those who come after. There are clear markers of sacrifice seemingly everywhere. Climbing holds and grapple points are present all throughout the continent, laid by expeditions who came here not to slay the Paintress, but to pave the way forward for when the next round of cavalry arrives. Journals filled with knowledge of past expeditions, marked flags that show the path forward, even a bridge of petrified corpses that expeditioners made with their dying breath. It is a common trope of fantasy media that humans might not be the strongest or the fastest, but that they have an unbreakable persistence. They will keep walking the path no matter the obstacles laid out in front of them, and through sheer tenacity and willpower they will crawl their way across the finish line. The expeditions are representative of this type of humanity. And throughout the first two-thirds of the game, this humanity is never questioned. That is, until the expedition finally achieves their goal. At the top of the monolith, the Paintress is felled, and we are finally given answers as to how this fantastical children's book of a world came to be. We head back to Lumiere before that happens, where our characters, the cast sadly misshaped by the brutality of the continent, realize just how distorted their view of this world had been all along. Verso is a character that joins the party partway along the expedition. Gustave unfortunately meets his end in a confrontation with Renoir, a mysterious man of great strength that has been impeding expeditions for decades, and Verso serves as a substitution for him, though his motivations for helping us are initially unknown. We learn that he is actually the son of Renoir, that they are both immortal, and that the Paintress seems to think that Renoir is her husband and that Verso is her son. All of this, as well as the constant references to art and color and painting that are present throughout the entire game, tie into the big reveal of Expedition 33, which is one of the most well-done subversions of expectations that I have ever experienced in a piece of media. Once the Paintress is slain, we head back to Lumiere, but the Gamage doesn't stop. Instead, the next Gamage is happening right now, and it takes everybody with it. It is after this that we learn the origin of the world. Lumiere and the continent exist in a sort of pocket dimension, with an entire other world existing outside of it. Present in this other world is the Desandre family. Aline, who we had only known so far as the Paintress, is at the head of it. Renoir is her husband, and they have 3 children, Clair, Verso, and Alicia, known to us as Maëlle. The Desandres are a family of painters, people who possess the power to create worlds inside of canvases, in a literal sense. The entire world we have experienced up until this point is inside of one of these canvases, specifically the canvas of Verso Desandre. Aline is grieving, as is the rest of the family, but she is taking it especially hard. We learn that there was an accident, a fire, the same fire that inflicted the scars that reside upon Alicia, also took Verso's life. We do not know many details about this fire, just that it was caused by a rival faction in the outside world called the Riders, and that Alicia thinks that Verso's death was her fault. Aline is not ready to say goodbye to her son, and so she clings to his canvas, the last thing in this world that retains a part of his soul. She has completely immersed herself within this canvas, something that all of the painters have the ability to do, as an effort to maintain some kind of connection with Verso. And in this world, she has taken on the persona of the paintress, and she has painted a new version of her family to exist in the painting alongside her. We are told that spending prolonged periods in a canvas is dangerous, that the physical body of the painter will begin to die, but this doesn't stop her. She would rather exist as the paintress in a world with her son than as Aline in a world without him. The Desandres try their best to pull her out. Clair puts restraints on Aline's chroma so that she can't create anything new, and Renoir enters the canvas as a presence known as the Curator to begin the slow process of overpowering Aline's chroma with his own. In an effort to help Renoir remove Aline from the canvas, Alicia also tries to enter, though once she does, her chroma is quickly overpowered by that of Aline's, and so she is reborn as one of Aline's creations, Maëlle. The people of Lumière are also Aline's creation, but it is important to note the focus that the story puts on their existence as individuals. As we've already spoken about, these people are by all definitions still human. They have ambitions, relationships, expectations. They can feel love and pain and everything in between, and they are driven in distinctly human fashion to persist. They are even willing to die for it. They have lived entire lives full of both hopes and sorrows. They have memories and they feel just the same as you and I. The Desandres also acknowledge this. When we meet the real Renoir, projecting himself into the painting upon our return to Lumière, he makes a point to let the painted Verso know just how sorry he is, that he was forced to live a life, multiple lives, in this world, just to have it all torn down by some omniscient figure. Because that is the intent of the Desandres. Clair, Renoir, and Alicia, at least initially, intend to destroy the painting so that Aline won't be tempted to lose herself in it again. Renoir's original entrance into the painting is what caused the fracture, the global event which ripped the continent asunder. It is also what caused Aline to begin painting the numbers on the monolith. They weren't a sentencing after all, but a warning. As Renoir worked to overpower Aline's chroma, she began losing the strength to maintain her creations. The annual lowering of the number was her warning to the people of Lumière, telling them just how much time they really had left. When the paintress was defeated, she had no strength left to prevent Renoir from erasing all of her creations, causing all of the people of Lumière to be erased with her, all except for Maëlle and Verso. There is in life a certain type of grief, a crushing, overwhelming grief that one can't and won't get over. I believe it's the origin of the word strength being used to reference emotions. Because this grief isn't something that goes away. It isn't something that weighs less as time ticks on. We simply have to find the strength to lift it just enough to move under its weight. I referenced the film Manchester by the Sea earlier due to the parallels we see between it and the relationship that Gustave and Sophie shared. I reference it again because it deals with the same type of grief Maëlle struggles with now. I won't spoil too much, but I highly recommend you watch the film if you haven't. This is the type of grief that the Desandres are experiencing, but perhaps most of all, the type of grief that Alicia is experiencing. This is because Alicia has lived 2 lives, 16 years outside of the painting and 16 years inside of it. When Alicia was rebuilt in the canvas through Aline's chroma, she was created as Maëlle, and Maëlle has experienced an entire existence inside of this canvas. Alicia now has experiences from both, memories from both, and while I'm sure there are pleasant ones, one of the consistencies between these 2 separate lives is the loss that she is forced to suffer through in both of them. As Alicia, she lost her voice, she lost her identity, she lost her will, and she lost her brother. As Maëlle, she lost Gustave, her childhood, and her innocence. However, in her newly realized position as a painter inside of a canvas, she suddenly finds herself in a situation where she can have it all back. She can have Verso and she can have her voice. She can bring back Gustave and all the other people of Lumière that she has been forced to part with. She has been granted an ultimate position where, for the first time, she gets to choose who lives and who dies. With her own permission, she ascends herself to a state of godhood, with the intention of creating a world she endlessly desires, but feared she would never have the chance to possess. But this doesn't come for free. The party convinces Renoir to leave the canvas. Maëlle tells him that, like Aline, she is just not ready to let Verso go. She says that she will one day return to her body, but she is lying. She doesn't trust Renoir or Clair not to destroy Verso's canvas upon her departure, this last piece of evidence that he ever existed. So she decides that she will stay. She decides that she is willing to give up her life on the outside, and furthermore, she is willing to let her body wither and die, to face her own gamage to stop Lumiere from facing theirs. Verso, however, has different plans. His intention is to force Maëlle to leave the canvas. Maëlle has experienced 2 lives, yes, but the painted Verso has lived for nearly 100 years. Being immortal has its benefits, but as Verso himself says, it can get old burying all the people that you care about. For him, a life in this canvas is a never-ending one, but he also needs Maëlle to leave for her own sake. By virtue of Aline as the paintress, Verso has seen the damage that can be done to one's soul when they dive into the deep end. Furthermore, the real Verso is still trapped in the canvas, his canvas, or at least a piece of him is. A fragment of the outside Verso's soul is at the center of it all. It is the anchor that is holding this world in place. For Maëlle to allow this world to exist, it would mean that that piece of Verso's soul will never be free. It will never be able to rest, and neither will the painted Verso. The game gives the player a choice here. Fight as Maëlle against Verso. Fight to keep the painted world alive. Or fight as Verso against Maëlle and fight to free yourself, and to force freedom upon Alicia, but at the cost of all of the humanity, all of the life that exists inside of this canvas. Verso's ending is the more clear-cut of the two. Yes, he is acting with selfish intent, at least to the degree that he desires to end his captivity within an immortal prison. However, he also fights to free that last piece of his soul, and he fights for what he believes is the better life for Alicia. His intentions, to me at least, feel pure, and it feels that he is understanding of the sacrifice he is forcing upon the people of the canvas, but that he still deems it necessary. Maëlle's ending is far less simple. Maëlle has the desire to exist in this world in a state of godhood. She has ultimate power here. She can shape this world into whatever she desires. In her final scenes, we see that she has brought back all of the people that were erased when the paintress fell. She has built with them a life that she desires, finally surrounded by all of the things that both Maëlle and Alicia have wanted. The mood quickly shifts, though, when we see that Verso is here as well. When Maëlle fought against Verso to keep control of the canvas, upon his defeat, Verso uttered one final wish: to let him go, because this isn't the life he wants. Yet here, by Maëlle's hand, he is being forced to live it. What happens when someone who has become so intimately familiar with death is given the power to erase it? Maëlle thinks it is her fault that the real Verso died, so now the painted version will live forever whether he wants to or not. While Verso fought to force freedom upon Alicia, Maëlle seeks to force slavery upon him, as a cog in the perfect version of a world that she will do anything to keep. In addition to this, Maëlle has denied the life of Alicia de Sandra, both from herself and from the family on the outside that she still has left. While it can truthfully be said that she is making an ultimate sacrifice, the sacrifice of herself, so that the people of the canvas can continue on, it is also true that in these two ways her actions come from a sense of greed, of selfishness. I spoke earlier about finding a single word that can encapsulate an experience. For Clair Obscur Expedition 33, that word is cope. From start to finish, this game explores the capacity that a human has to cope with the tragedies that have befallen them, and it shows just how different each and every person is in this regard. Aline and Alicia use the canvas to hold onto a piece of Verso. Renoir justifies his onslaught against them as the only way to salvage what is left of his family, and the painted Verso longs for death, just so that he doesn't have to find a way to cope anymore. Grief is a key part of humanity. and it can be one of the worst experiences a person can go through. But it can also remind us just how much love there is in our lives, and it demands us to be aware of just how lucky we are to have had people and things that are worth grieving.
Clair, obscur, par des hauts peints, tu trouveras